Good morning, this is the Breville Infuser, model BES840. In this video I'll be making a full coffee on it from start to finish, showing all the features and hopefully teaching you a thing or two about how to make coffee on an espresso machine like this. So this machine was actually a trade-in. It was traded in a couple days ago by a customer who upgraded to the next model up. The machine is only a year old. Very good condition. In fact, I've also just finished doing the service. I service every used machine that I sell, and this one I fully opened up, checked all the seals, tested the machine at full pressure, tested the steam at full pressure, did both of the cleaning cycle and the descale cycle. And yeah, it presents very nicely in and out. Cosmetically, it's in very good condition as well. So being a used machine, of course, you'll have some scratches. So mainly on the drip tray, some around here at the back, a tiny nick on the front that's very shallow and hard to see, but nothing too major, honestly. It's very, very well taken care of. And yeah, I think it'll last you many, many years, and it'll look good for many, many years as well, because it's a brushed stainless, not a painted model. Right, so usually when I start making coffee, I like to start by warming up the machine. You can either let it on for 10 minutes, have the portafilter locked on. That'll help it warm up. Over 10 minutes, if you're in a hurry like me, just run a blank shot. So press the double button. It's going to give you hot water into the cup, warming up the handle, the cup, and the machine's internals. You can do that once or twice, up to you. Because we're testing the machine, I might as well test the single button, which I did test before the video. They both work fine, the volumetric dosing, that is. I'm going to use my Breville Barista Touch to grind, because I don't have a separate grinder for this machine. I recommend you use freshly ground coffee, so get a grinder, I would recommend, rather than getting your coffee pre-ground. It tastes much better if it's freshly ground, I can tell you that. So the machine, as you saw in the photos, has lots of accessories. So all the basic ones you need, if I'm being honest. So 4 baskets, obviously the portafilter and the tamper here, cleaning disc, and also some cleaning tablets. And the milk jug, of course, this milk jug. So this portafilter has the double basket attached. I'll show you what that looks like now. It takes 18 grams of ground coffee, so I'll be using 18 grams of beans in my dosing cup here. If you don't have a dosing cup, you can just obviously grind into the portafilter. But I'm dosing 18 grams. There we go. $18 grams of fresh dark beans, dark roast. So before you put the coffee grounds in the handle or the portafilter, you need it to be dry. So grab a tissue or a towel and dry it out. This is what the double basket looks like. It's the single wall double basket. And yeah, it takes 18 grams of coffee, maybe 17 and a half, 17. I wouldn't recommend going over 18, as that will cause problems to your group head and to your coffee brewing. characteristics as well. Spread that coffee around, nice and even. Then grab the tamper and press nice and firmly. Make sure all the sides are evenly deep. If one side is deeper than the other, you need to fix that. If you don't have a scale like me here and you want to know what the correct amount of coffee looks like, firstly, this is what it looks like. It's 18 grams as confirmed by my scale. Secondly, you can just look at the tamper. So Breville designed the silver part on the tamper to be like a rough guide as to how deep it should go when you have the correct amount of coffee and after you tamp. So I've just, like I said, 18 grams and I've finished tamping all the way. The silver part disappears and that's what you want to see. If the silver part is all the way up here and you can't press the coffee any deeper into the handle or into the basket, then that's too much coffee. And similarly, if the portafilter or if the tamper is deep in the portafilter like this, too deep, then that's an indicator that it's too little coffee. So yeah, you can just look at this and confirm if you have the right amount of coffee. You also want to make sure to clean the edges to keep your machine nice and healthy. Lock in the portafilter just beyond the middle position. It'll go all the way to the 5 o'clock position actually if you push it, but no need to force it. The 6 o'clock position should hold pressure, no problems. If in a few years time you see if you put it in the middle position and it starts slipping backwards, that just means you need to tighten it a bit more all the way to the right. But it should be fine now. I've just finished doing the cleaning and the testing it all the way to full pressure, and it wouldn't move at the middle position. So that's that. I'm going to get rid of this hot water now. You've also got a hot water tap if you want to make your espresso into a long black. You can also use this for like tea bags or warming up things or cups. In my case, I like to add a little bit of hot water to my cup to help the sugar dissolve. I add a little bit of sugar to my coffee. About 8 grams, not that much. Cool. So yeah, usually we want to add sugar or sweeteners or syrups before the espresso, so that once the espresso starts coming down, it mixes nicely with the flavors, and you have a nice cup of coffee there. Yep, so we measured the input as, what was it, 18? We want the output into the cup to be double of what we put in. So we put in 18, we want to get 36 out. So that's where you adjust your grinder or your machine to the right settings. And with trial and error, you should be getting at a grind size that's appropriate for you and what you like. So for example, if I were to grind too fine on my grinder, it'll give me very finely ground espresso, almost like flour. And what that would give me is a very strong espresso. Maybe sometimes no espresso. If the coffee is very fine, maybe nothing will come out because it's compacted so tightly that the water can't get through. Or if it can get through, it's maybe just a few drops of coffee that come out. That indicates that the grind size is too fine. And on the other extreme, if the grind size is too large, too coarse, what will happen is you'll get a lot of coffee very quickly, and the taste may be a bit burnt, or not really burnt, a bit sour and off tasting, I would say. And that's how you can know if your grind size is too large, if you get a lot of coffee very quickly. So in terms of numbers, if you want to get at the right sort of ratios at the right speed, the numbers are, like I said, 18 grams in, 36 into the cup, and that should take 20 to 30 seconds. If it takes much longer than 20 seconds, so very slow, one drop at a time, and you see the pressure gauge skyrocket, all the way to like 1 o'clock, then that's too fine, too slow. It shouldn't take more than 30 seconds, 35 at the most for a coffee. And on the other hand, like I said, if it's too large, what will happen is that 36 gram shot, which is usually about this much, that'll happen in 10 seconds, which is way too quick. 10 or 15 seconds is way too quick. And when that happens, you usually see the pressure gauge being very low, sometimes below the gray zone. You want the pressure gauge to be between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. So in the gray zone, really. Anywhere in the gray zone should be good, and that's usually about like 8 to 11 bars, something like that. And it should be good to go, because this is the grind size I use for my own machine, which is like the same pump and everything. Unless there's something different with the overpressure valve, I think we should get a good coffee here. And that's a lot of talking. I'm gonna do one more thing. Hopefully this is not too overwhelming for you. The other thing I'm gonna do is change the length of the buttons. So we spoke about how much to grind in, we spoke how much to get out, how much we aim to get out, and we also spoke about how long that should take. But there's another level of complexity, which is the buttons here. These are pre-programmed from factory, but usually I don't recommend using the pre-programmed because they're usually a bit too long. So if I were to do the double cup, which means double shot, I'll get a lot of coffee, from my experience at least. So I'll recalibrate this button to give me about 35 to 40 grams. So we'll make a coffee now, and I remember from, by eye, what 35 to 40 looks like, or 40, like 40-ish. And yeah, let's do that, and at the same time see how we're going in terms of the grind size, and if we need to change it at all. But I honestly might not change it, because when you get this machine, you're probably using a different grinder, different beans, and so it's probably futile for me to change my settings for this machine. But in any case, it should be quite similar. To change the button length, you'll press program, and then the button. I'm also going to time it here on my scale, so we can get a good estimate of how we're doing in terms of the brew speed. So it's now 8 seconds and the flow starts, which is the right thing to happen. Usually the flow should start between 8 to 10. Looks like it's at the 1 o'clock position, which is on the higher end of the scale, so about 10 bars, which still is good, I think. I'm going to stop it at 30 seconds exactly. That is a very good shot. Look at that. Good crema, good flow, good pressure, and just over 40 grams, so 43. So that was a bit too long. I did wait all the way to 30 seconds. I could have stopped it at 28, but I was just hoping to get the right amount of coffee at 30 seconds. That's all good. This is still a very good shot. This is probably a 2 point... Yeah, close to a 2.5 to 1, not a 2 to 1 ratio. Not very drastic. I think this is still a good shot. Give it a try with your own machine and see what happens. With your own grinder and your own beans. But yeah, I could have stopped it at 28, and that would have probably given me 40 instead of 43. Or something less than 40 grams. Great, so that's settings done. So now this button will give you about 40 to 45 grams every time. If you use similar beans to what I did today, I'm gonna get rid of this coffee here. Very easy to clean. Just knock it off into the bin. I have a knockbox here, but you can use any bin really. And then give it a flush. That's going to clean the group head here and the portafilter. So yeah, and the machine will stop on its own. So it'll give you, like I said, about 40 grams of coffee. And you'll remember that. You can also change this to whatever you like. And if you're ever stuck and want to go back to the factory settings, just hold the program button and it'll reset the settings to the factory original settings. If your machine starts, if you mess up the settings, for example. Right, so that's done and all cleaned. Next we'll steam some milk. So turn on the steamer, wait a few seconds, usually it's about 10 or 15 seconds. So once it's at full pressure, turn it off, position your jug, turn it back on. I forgot to say, try to fill the jug about halfway, so halfway, and then once you position the jug, try to keep it at an angle and keep the wand like close to the edge at an angle and spinning the milk. And keep the tip close to the surface for the first 10 seconds. You hear this ripping sound or paper tearing sound. That means you're injecting air into the milk. You're giving it that giving it that texture, that fluff. I'm going to do that for 10 seconds, which is about now. If you do that for too long, what you'll get is very thick milk with very big bubbles, which may not taste great. For a latte, usually it's a bit of foam, but usually it's a smoother consistency versus like, I don't know, a cappuccino or something else. And when it's too hot to the touch, I'll turn it off. And if you turn it off for more than 5 seconds, it'll actually cool down. It'll go back to coffee mode. But before you let it cool down, just give it a purge, very quick purge like that, to clean the insides of the milk wand from any milk. And then turn it back off, and it will cool down in 5 seconds. Also grab a wet towel and wipe the wand. Keep it nice and clean to prevent any clogging or milk build-up that would look gross over time. Nice and easy. Don't neglect the bottom edge here. A lot of people forget that. And yeah, that's all done. You can turn off the machine now. You can make another coffee. So, we've got quite thick milk, maybe actually closer to a cappuccino than a latte. I did aerate it for too long. Yeah, so about halfway, and then it'll, the thickness and the consistency will depend on how long you stay close to the edge. When I say close to the edge, I mean close to the surface. So if you dunk the wand all the way into the milk, so deep into the milk, let's say like this, then you won't be injecting any air into the milk, and you'll just be heating the milk and spinning it around. Whereas if you were to keep the tip sort of ½ centimeter to a centimeter, well, let's not use measurements, that's not very accurate. If say you keep it this deep into the milk, as it spins, it'll incorporate air into that whirlpool. It'll incorporate air to the milk, and it'll give you that thick consistency. I said 10 seconds. I think I held it for longer than 10 seconds because I've got quite a thick foam. What I'm doing now is I'm knocking the jug to break any air bubbles, then swirling around to mix it up. And then after that, once it's nice and smooth texture, if it looks like smooth paint, then you're done basically. No latte art for me today, but it's probably my fault. I foamed it for too long. Anyway, that's what it looks like, almost spilling out of the cup. Looks really good. I'm definitely looking forward to having this coffee. I'm sure you can do better coffees than me. If you have some barista training or just with some regular practice, you can easily do latte art on this machine. Coffees that rival coffee shops really. Yeah, hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.